And the doors are open. Welcome, 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 everyone. Okay, the numbers are going to be up in the next minutes with everyone joining us. We are super happy to have you all with us. And we want to welcome you. This is the first day of the Team Coaching Global Summit, and this is the second session of the first day with Karl van Hoey and intake sessions in team coaching. Together with you is Jonathan Reitz and Katerina Kanelidou from the Team Coaching Global Alliance that we are co-hosting this session. Feel free to say hi in the chat box and please add your location, where you are joining us from. I can tell you that Karl is in Belgium, Jonathan is in Ohio, and I am in Greece. So let's hear from you. Where are you from? In this session, we are going to have 45 minutes together. Please keep your microphone on mute to avoid distractions. And after the first introductions, Karl will take the stage with his presentation. If you have questions or answers to Karl's questions, you can use the chat.
The chat seems to be just, oh, there it seems to be disabled, but I think it's back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eva. Yes, Renata, I see your hand.
Yes, for me too. I couldn't write in the chat, but I can now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting us know. Now, we have Karl. And who is Karl van Hoey? Who isn't Karl van Hoey? So the official bio of Karl is that he combines a very successful record of more than 3,500 hours of executive and team coaching in a huge variety of industries worldwide, with a long and extensive experience in corporate HR leadership roles. In 2014, he decided to become independent, and in 2020, he co-founded the Team Coaching Global Alliance. Guess with whom? providing top-class training in the ICF Team Coaching Competencies that he helped develop as a subject matter expert with the ICF. He has been guest professor for many years at EMS Business School in Brussels and 3 years visiting professor at BSN in Algeria. Karl holds the MCC and the ACTC by the ICF, and he is also a Master Practitioner by the EMCC. And I think it's time that we give the stage to Karl. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and we will continue with Karl's presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me first of all acknowledge and share some appreciation and gratitude to the entire TCGA team and to my colleague Katrina in particular for the wonderful efforts that we've been doing in the last weeks in preparing this summit. Thank you. And let me also thank you, dear friends, dear participants, for the immense interest that you've shown so far, not only in the registration numbers, but also in the effective participation numbers, which are also wonderful. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Now I'm going to do something very risky, and that is sharing my screen. Those who do not know me yet, me and technology can be an interesting marriage. Do you see my full screen? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
So, well, as a warming up exercise, we're going to focus here on intake sessions, particularly in team coaching. But as I do not have a clue who's in the audience and how much experience is in the audience, if you could briefly write in the chat box in a few words, what in your opinion is the difference between a intake session and a coaching session? If you were to summarize that just in one line, what is the key difference there, friends? Intake session versus coaching session. I found my chat box. That's good. Now I'm curious for your input. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. You are in a great form today. That's good. A lot of wisdom. Yes, yes, clarifying, coaching, yes, intake, yes, 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 yes. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. And it keeps on going. Well, I'm going to stop following it here because we have some topics, some content to cover. But thank you. Thank you very much for this first engagement of yours. And we also may reach the end of our session sooner because apparently you know all about it already. Anyway, yes, so you're right. An intake session has one sole purpose, and that is to clearly collaborate and co-create a space where parties can describe and clarify what exactly are the topics that we think we need to be coached upon, and what is the outcomes that we ask ourselves to reach at the end. Coaching session is then the way the way leading to those topics and outcomes. Excellent, good. Let me first try to set the scene in a more general way before jumping into the team situation. So how I usually do that, and you must know that when it comes to team coaching, there are as many approaches as there are coaches. So there's not one, at least not in my experience, one golden book that says it all for everyone. It's always your personal approach. And let me share here mine. So when I start with intakes, whether it is individual or team coaching, it doesn't matter. I always start with a very short, what I call chemistry session. It's about 30 minutes with one single question to explore. Can we work together, their future clients? And where the client asks the same question, can we work together, their future coach? In most cases, honestly, that answer is yes, but it happens that both parties say, it is not 100% optimal. There is something that does not seem to entirely work, whatever it is. So, nah, rather not. Okay, that's fine. That is, of course, not paid. It takes about 30 minutes. And then, of course, there is the intake session or intake sessions. I have the habit of invoicing those already. The purpose there is to explore clients' challenges and translate them into topics and objectives. That takes about 1 or 2 hours in individual coaching, and it can have another format in team coaching, but we will come about that later. And then, of course, you start with your first official team coaching session. Very important here to touch the attention is that if the chemistry between you and your client is really excellent and you sense that from the very beginning, your intake session may already turn into a coaching session. Because basically, when you ask for topics and objectives, you do exactly the same. You ask open question, you listen very, very carefully, you try to interpret, you try to write down things. But some of the techniques are exactly the same as a coaching session. And so before you know it, you are no longer in an intake, but in a coaching. And that's a pitfall because the client needs to very clearly see the difference between those two. And so I have the habit of very clearly mark a boundary in between intakes and the first coaching session. Okay. Just for your information, tools that I usually use a lot to support my intake session. I love to work with Hogan assessments, both for individual and for team coaching. Hogan has also an instrumentarium specifically for teams, and I use both of them while working with teams. I love, my colleagues here know that, I love the pyramid of Lencioni, and there are also some assessments available on the internet when you would like to use that. And then I have, over the last 10 years, developed a standard query that I fine-tune per client. These are classical questions of how do you experience leadership? How do you experience collective well-being? What are the key challenges? What is good? What is not so good? Those kind of questions. I have a standard one, but I fine-tune it each time that I work with a new client. And then I also have specific client-related questions, and I will come to these on the next slide. So, dear friends, here it becomes very, very personal. I've worked with these two approaches in the last 15 years. I've worked both with what I call, I hope you see my mouse arrow moving. If you do not, the left side of the slide, these are actually individual intake sessions with each team member. That's what you see at the left of the slide. Karl doing individual intakes with each team member, individual. In the later phase, I translate all the challenges that I heard during individual intakes into team topics and objectives. And of course, I ask the team to validate what I've learned on an individual basis. This is what I learned, dear friends, from all of you individually. I tried to bring that together in team topics and team objectives. Is this what relates to you? That is how I start then the first session. Another way of working is not working with individual intakes, but immediately facing the team as a whole, listening, asking basically the same questions, but listening to what the team as a whole has to respond. And then, of course, you need to capture immediately the team topics and objectives immediately while they're coming from the team. Now, let me be very clear on this. Whatever you may already use or not use, please do not throw everything away that you use just because Karl van Høy may say something else or different here. By all means, dear friends, what works, works. Over the years, I've learned that I have a preference for what happens here at the left side. This has become my personal preferred way of working, and this I do not do a lot anymore. But that is a matter of personal preferences and personal ways of working with these things. Let me engage you a second time here in the chat box. Those of you who have already worked with teams and done intakes, what is your preference and why? What is your preference and why? Please use the chat. Thank you. Mm-hmm. 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 There are people I know here. Thank you very much for participating. Mm-hmm. 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 Beautiful, beautiful. And you see indeed that diversity, both preference for individual and for team, which is wonderful. Mm-hmm. Virtual team coaching. Yes, 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 yes. Depends on the team. Yeah, indeed. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for a huge variety. Now, when I prepared this slide deck, I thought it was going to be a good idea to also make the bridge to the team coaching competencies as created a few years ago by ICF, because it both says something about my preferences, but also about probably the way that I master or do not master yet the competency. So why do I have a preference for the individual intakes first? Well, it involves a few competencies. Competency 3 in the team coaching framework says partners with all relevant parties, including the team leader, team members, stakeholders, blah, 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 etc. So this is about establishing and maintaining agreements. I've always found it a hard time to partner with all these people, well, together in one group. This suggests here, this could suggest to see the team as a whole, the team leader included, then to see the stakeholders separately, any co-coaches separately, and so on and so on. My way of interpreting this competency has always been, okay, but for me, it's better to partner with all relevant parties individually, and then in a later phase, have them come together. Another competency that is involved, and this one for me, dear friends, in all my vulnerability is the most difficult one. I have a much more easy way of working when I can cultivate trust and safety first on an individual basis and to later on continue building trust on a collective basis. So for me, it is much easier, but again, it's very personal. It's much easier to build a safe space with that team if before I've already had the opportunity to build trust in a safe space with each one of the members on an individual basis. That is just the thing that I've learned about myself. It's easier and also safer for me to do that first one-on-one than immediately collectively. And when I already established individual trust with each one of them, all the rest here that the competency describes us to do goes much easier. I can much easier encourage participation and contribution when upfront during individual intakes, I already built trust with everyone. I can much easier promote effective communication within the entire team when the intakes upfront happens individually. And then we arrive at the last one, which is, for me, the most challenging ones. And again, it's not because at a certain moment you become a master coach that all of a sudden all these things go like that. It keeps on requiring efforts, and it's a matter of personal preferences and personal learning. ICF requires us, when it comes to active listening, a lot of noticing. Notice how perspectives of each team member and so on are happening. Notices how each team member impacts the collective team energy. Notice verbal, non-verbal communication. This, of course, matters when the team coaching is busy, but actually when you are having an intake session, for me, it is much more difficult to notice everything that is happening, to listen actively to everything that is said, to everything that is not said, but that is present. For me, it's much more difficult to do that when immediately facing the team as a whole. I have a difficulty with noticing everything I need to notice. That goes much easier for me when I do it individually. So this is just a trial to connect both. Let us return briefly to the chat again. When you look at those three competencies, which one do you relate most to when you think about intakes? I stopped sharing my screen. I should not have done that. Let us return. We have returns. Yes. So let's use the chat box for a while. Which of those three competencies do you relate most with when it comes to choosing your favorite way of intakes? Competency 6. Trust and safety. Trust and safety and partnering are the big winners. Okay, active listening. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's continue here. So my personal best practice, I start with individual intakes using assessments as described earlier, question lists as described earlier, or anything else that may be useful. My intention here is to learn as much as I can from all individual team members when it comes to all things that matter in their team. Lencioni is a good help in that, but it goes further than that. How do you relate with individual leadership? How much is there kind of collective leadership? How do you experience the mutual communication, the mutual collaboration? How good are you in dealing with conflicts? How much focus is there on results? What big elephants are there in the room that are not always talked about, but are clearly present? What hidden conflicts are there? What hidden agendas are there? Those kind of things. All possible concerns, all possible things that probably team members are already holding a long time, but maybe so far never have had the occasion to express. So anything that matters to them when it comes to collaboration of the team. Once that I finished all the individual intakes, I spent quite some time when it comes to integrating all this. What have I learned from each individual team members? What impressions have I done while having conversations with them? What patterns am I seeing in everything that I've learned? Is there anything else that I've seen, that I've learned, that I heard that is worth touching and bringing back into the collective experience? So I integrate all these things into objectives. What could be the outcomes when putting all this together as outcomes for a team? These outcomes, of course, these objectives have to be validated by the team, and that is where I start with during the first coaching session. I start with, hey guys, this is what I've learned during all the individual meetings, and I put them on a few slides or I put them on a flip chart. This is what I've learned from you. This, I think, are your topics that we should work on together, and these, next slide, are probably the outcomes that you should work on. Have I understood this correctly? Is this what you can relate to as a team? By the way, very often this is already a very first confronting situation, because of course they recognize what they've said themselves, of course anonymously, but when more people have said the same thing, of course I've taken that in my slide. So that's usually a first quite confronting place to start the discussion. I also try to build some strategies, exercises, methodologies that I can use during the team coaching based on what I've learned. Very important there, friends. As team coaching, it's exactly the same as individual coaching. Choosing in the moment what to do and following the energy of your team where they want to go is, of course, much more important than holding on to any strategy or tool or exercise you may have prepared. But for me, it's good to have prepared something. So, and with all that, it's a slide usually, with all that, I go to the team and I show them, this is what I've learned. This is what I think could be objectives or outcomes. What is this doing with you? And then a very interesting dynamic here, the pattern of the communication between team members starts. They start exploring what I've shown, and then usually the interaction starts and the coaching itself starts as well. That is what I usually do. My personal pitfalls, and then we return to some interaction again. My personal pitfalls are these. Individual intakes may provide better chemistry with some of the team members than with others. True. With 3 of the 8, I have phenomenal chemistry. With 2, a bit less. And with 3 others, no chemistry at all. Perfectly realistic. But this may have an impact on the way that I will be present once facing the entire team, because I'm not only an MCC, but I'm also a human being. I recognize that in myself, and I have to self-correct, as we call it, when I observe in myself certain dynamics or certain preferences to team more with 3 out of the 8 than with the 8 as a whole. So I've learned that observing in myself, when that happens, I have to be careful. But by the way, those of you who would ever have the ambition to go for the ACTC credential of ICF, that's also one of the things that's part of the exam that you have to go through those kind of cases. Another pitfall is individual intakes may unconsciously and unintentionally lead to a more intense relation with the team leader than with the members. And that, dear friends, can be a very, very dangerous place to be in as a coach. Let me give you an example. When you're passing through a very intensive moment together with a team, sometimes I observe that how are they behaving? How are they present here in this exercise? Do they like it? Don't they like it? That is a very, very dangerous situation to be in, unconsciously, but unintentionally, but it happens. I've taken supervision in the past year specifically on that topic. And last one, team intakes can become chaotic and therefore turn into coaching sessions. So team intakes, when I have not had individual intakes, but when I work with team intakes, they can become chaotic and therefore turn into coaching sessions, missing purpose and not reaching the objective, meaning agreeing on goals. That's a pitfall for me. I do not always master 200% the process of team intakes. All right, let's return for a very short while to the chat box, and then we'll come to an ending with a case. Yes, dear friends. The chat box, please. Any reflections on all this?
You have two questions, Karl.
Okay.
One is from Maimon, with so much information and impression from this intake. How do you insulate yourself from being judgmental, biased, conscious or not?
That is an excellent question, Maimon. Thank you. By self-observing that I risk to indeed be judgmental and to have biases and to correct them while they're happening, and also by taking regular supervision. That is the only honest answer I have to that. But the point is absolutely granted, and it would be stupid and even dangerous to think that even the most experienced coaches can keep on mastering those situations without any external help. Thank you, Maimon. What's a human being, Jonathan? Look in the mirror, my dear friend. You got one there. And then there is...
You have another question from Karen Krante. Karl, what AI tools have you used to make yourself more efficient in integrating the individual intake sessions to elicit learning patterns, etc.?
None. I walk 300 years behind, at least, when it comes to AI. So none, absolutely none. Perhaps I should, but so far, my experience with AI, except taking automatic notes after Zoom meetings, is very, very limited. And then we have on 𝗏𝗏𝗏, how do you manage a situation where it becomes clear through the individual intake that the team leader is the key? Aha, bingo. Yes. I will not mention that impression during any individual intake. I will not mention that impression during the team coaching. If there are people having to mention that, it's going to be the team members and certainly not me. What does happen a lot is that during the team coaching exercise, it becomes clear for certain members, also the team leader, that they may need individual coaching at the sideline. Now, opinions and visions, whether you can combine individual coaching together with team coaching, many different visions on that. My personal perspective is that there is no problem whatsoever in combining them, even on the contrary. But again, I don't want to put any perspective here as please do that. No, it's just my personal preference. But that's how I do that. And then we have Anna Paula, a question: how do you integrate the briefing or individual conversation with the leader? I do not. The leader is just one of the team members that is going to be part of the team coaching. So there is no upfront sharing of slides saying, hey, their team leader, this is what I've learned. This is the slide that I'm going to start with. Is that okay for you? Or what are your thoughts about that? Never, never. That's quite frankly none of their business. It's the business of the entire team. How you manage conflict between individual intakes and leader challenge. Brilliant, Jim. I do not manage. No. Ideally, it explodes during the very first hours of the team coaching, and in case it would explode, it's the most beautiful start you can imagine while working with the team. You can say, oh, wow, I see there's apparently conflict going on. Tell me more about this. What's happening? Et voila, there you go. So I do not manage anything when it comes to conflicts. I try to coach them on their conflicts. Okay. Are we clear here, Catherine and Jonathan? Have I missed anything else? Yeah, okay. Then to end with, I believe that I have a client case. Yes, this is an example of a very, very recent client case. So it is a manufacturing company in the automobile industry. And after that, I had done individual intakes with 6 management team members, including the team leader. This was the summary of what I've learned. And this is what I've showed at the very first moment when they were together as a team. Imagine their team. You would now be at the end of your 2 days together with me. Where would you like to be? This is what I've learned from you, to find ways of collaborating, communicating more respectfully, open, trustfully, to finally trust each other over 100% without fear of disloyalty, to dare to openly name things without fear, find sounding boards in order, to accept there are different opinions, perspectives, more balanced leadership style, and so on and so on. It's clear that trust, accountability, and fearless communication were crucial things for them. So this is an example of things that have come back many times during individual intakes. Well, I've put them together on a slide. It was the first slide of the team coaching. And the second slide that I showed with them was actually this. I used the 𝗏𝗏 pyramid with them. So I said, well, you've all done the 𝗏𝗏 assessments. It was not a free one, but a paid one because they had foreseen it in their budget. And you can very beautifully show there how they responded. So focus and results, everyone, top of the bill, 100%, commitment, 80%, and then the very, very challenging parts, lack of conflict handling, trust, and accountability. So it's actually kinda, it went like that. Usually everything starts with trust. If at the end of the day you want to have results, here it was slightly reversed. And they were very confronted by me showing them that slide. And again, it was a beautiful space to start the team coaching with. Okay, this was, I think, my last slide. Well, the rest is again about me and my beautiful face. I was a bit younger then than I was now. I apologize for that. You can find everything about me here. You can find everything about the company that the team here has founded over the previous year. This is my LinkedIn profile. But enough about me. Let's return back to you. Stop sharing the screen. Et voilà.
Thank you, Karl. We are super lucky because we still have time for questions. So what questions do you have for Karl? I think it's a perfect opportunity to take advantage of him.
For me, it's okay if people, I don't know if it's technically possible if they raise hands and if we unmute them.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. We can do that. If you prefer, okay. So if you prefer to raise your hand, we have one from Sandra. What happens when the lead HR person is part of creating the team coaching engagement and they are part of the team?
What happens when the lead HR person is part of creating the team coaching and they are part of the team? Well, the question is, in teams that I coach, my personal expectation up front is that you have a group of team members who all work for the same team leader. That is my prerequisite. If anything else or anyone else is added to that team, an external, for instance, someone from HR, then it is no longer a team, then it's no longer a single entity. But if I return here, was it an HR team then? Part of creating a team, and they are part of the team. Was it an HR team then? Well, if it's an HR team, I look at them as if they were a normal team. I don't know if that's a sufficient answer to your question, Sandra.
We have more questions.
Yeah.
Sorry, Wilson, if you were to use a sporting team to describe the best practices of team coaching, which team sports would it be? I don't know, Wilson, if you were from the previous session, you were inspired by metaphors.
I can't answer that. What I look always very admiring to is teams that are climbing mountains and they are depending on each other literally for their lives. I look always with full admiration at those examples. Next.
I think any team sport can do, even the relays or in track and field. Yeah. Okay. So from Sandra, we have teams where there are direct reports and dotted line reports where they report to others too. Okay, no, that was a note. Okay, Anne, what happens if you don't have an external sponsor, as in the team leader is the sponsor?
Well, that actually does not change anything until that team leader starts saying, Karl, I would appreciate if you listen a little bit more to what I have to say here because I'm paying this. Which sometimes happens. And then I say, well, I'm sorry, but that is not going to happen unless you fire me as a team coach and hire someone else, because we clearly agreed up front. And of course, I have also my coaching agreement with them saying that you are part of the team. You're not standing above the team or besides the team, even not if you're paying for this entire adventure, you are part of the team. And that's the only way that we can coach a team. If that role is no longer fitting for you, then I'm afraid we'll have to do something else. And well, usually they accept or it stops, but usually they accept. There's a lot happening in the chat box. I'm not following.
Okay, there is one flag. Michaela, thank you for notifying that. This is from Aymun again. What if the original brief and objective given to you by the team sponsor is very different from what you discover through the intake sessions? Do you go back to the team sponsor?
The team sponsor normally is not part of any meeting where precise objectives are described. Usually the sponsor, that could be the CEO or the HR director, she could be present during the first meeting saying, well, I'm interested in the big lines. This is what I think should happen more or less. But Karl, further, I leave it in your wisdom. That is the usual behavior of a sponsor. And so when it comes to exploring topics and outcomes, the way I organize things, that's only done by those who will be part of the team coaching later on. I've lived the situation where a sponsor, not part of the team but paying it, knocked on the door and said, Karl, is it okay for you if I participate for half an hour just to see how things go? No, that's not okay. He was a little bit surprised by that answer, but no, that's not okay. Thank you. Any further questions?
Well, there is a question. I don't know if you want to answer that from Wilson. If Tony Robbins is a world-class role model for a motivational speaker, who is the world-class role model for a team coach?
Well, I'm going to give that a very diplomatic Belgium answer. I do not see Tony Robbins at all as a world-class role for motivational speaking. I think that resolves the question.
Yeah, but he's very good in marketing.
That's something else.
Karl von Hoey, of course.
Thank you, Greg. You're touching my feelings.
Oh, yeah. And Tim adds the comment that's important to clarify who will join team coaching at the beginning. And also, another question that comes up is what happens is you have the intake sessions, but the team changes while you are doing the team coaching.
Yes.
What happens? Do you onboard with intake sessions the new members, those who join?
That depends a bit. So when during the team coaching exercise that can run over several weeks or months, the team changes, which is evidently, I discuss together with the team what should happen. So we have a new team member, dear friends. Great, welcome aboard. How do you expect me, their team, to handle this new situation? What kind of intake should happen with that person or not? Well, if it's someone new, person will not have a lot of history or knowledge yet about the team, so you could question whether an individual intake is meaningful at such a moment, but it's the team that decides, not me.
Okay. And we have 4 minutes left. Okay, there is one last question that we can take regarding reporting to management. Do you measure the impact of your team coaching to business KPI?
That depends what you mean with business KPI. Imagine that one of the objectives that a team determines would be, yes, well, we would like to see at the end of the year an increase of our sales with 10%, because at the moment we fear not achieving our objective. Well, believe me, I've read many books about the ROI, as they say, of coaching and team coaching, and so far not one author has already convinced me that there is a direct line between coaching and return on investment. A lot of books about it, but not one so far that I think, yes, that's spot on. What I do try to do is at very regular basis question changed behavior at several comeback moments after that the team coaching has stopped, and say, how have your sales performance increased in the last month or improved in the last month? With that number. Okay. What new behaviors have you observed yourself doing in the last month? I've become more assertive. I listen more. I dare to say more to certain people. I've shown other ways of gratitude after that the contract was closed. Those kind of new commercial behaviors. And then I ask them, now I'm not looking here for compliments or a positive evaluation as your coach, but what relation do you see yourself between your coaching process and those better outcomes? And I make a report of that. And that report, with their approval, I send to the sponsor. If that is a way of measuring it, I don't know, but it's the best I got.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Karl. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. A huge thank you to everyone who joined the second session of the first day of the Team Coaching Global Summit. If you have still more questions, please put them in the comments on the LinkedIn post. You have the links there. And we hope that we will have the opportunity to see you in the next days, in the next sessions, or in the online corridors of LinkedIn and the other platforms. A huge thank you to everyone who has joined us. Thank you very much again, Karl. Jonathan has to run to another session, and we still have a few seconds left. So why don't you put in the chat what is, if there is one word that you take as a key takeaway, what is this? So what's one word that is your key takeaway from today? Clarity, alignment, improvement, thoughtful. Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you very much again. And let's continue the conversation online. See you in the next session. Have a wonderful rest of the day, everyone. And maybe see you tomorrow. Bye.
Hi, Karl. I have a quick question if you can hear me.
We have to close.
Oh, okay, fine.